Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show, we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long timeline. Please follow me on Twitter at Schnell Investor, and you can also find my blogs on gregschnell.com as well as StockCharts.com. So we had quite a wild start to the week with a big down day, but tech was holding up. So that was the good news. The addition of Market Buzz today is the pressure mounting on the banks, and I think it's always a good idea to keep an eye on what's going on in the bank area. Again, they see everybody's balance sheets. They also see all the retail parts of the market. So it's a pretty important component of the financial system, and I'm hoping after the Fed meeting that they'd start to improve, and they didn't really, so I want to show you that. And then keep an eye on some things that we have to look at. So that's the most important part of today. International banking stocks is kind of what I'm going to cover off. So there's U.S. in there as well, but U.S., Canadian, Mexican, Brazilian, Spanish, Italian, French, lots of different stuff. But I think it's the idea to get the broad picture and see what's going on in the world of finance. And then on my website, if there's anything you'd like to see over there, I'd encourage you to go there. Lots of different analysis that we do, a lot of macro stuff, and then some daily setups that are sitting there available for members. And then my presentation schedule over the next couple of weeks. On September 23rd, I'm on Instagram Live, which is today, and you can follow me there. So if you follow me on Instagram at Schnell Investor, that show will be airing, and I've got a little ad for it in just a second here. And September 29th on the Toronto Money Show. September 30th, I'm on StockCharts TV with the move to electric. And then in mid-October, I'll be on Wealth 365 Summit. So hopefully you can join me for all of those. So trading commodities, we're going to talk about that specifically with Juan Fernandez. And both of us will be obviously on Instagram, and we'll be doing an Instagram live show, and my first time trying that. So anyway, if you're interested, I'd encourage you to come and watch. And on September 30th, I've got a special 1-hour feature that I'm doing on the move to electric. And what it's discussing specifically is how the world is about to change here with this move to electric, and a lot of the car companies that are involved in it. I've got 20 car companies that are working on it. If you go to the Drive ETF, they've only got a few, like 3 or 4. So if you're interested in this move to electric, I'd encourage you to come and join me. And you can either sign up at this bit.ly address down here. You have to make sure there's a small s in there, otherwise it won't work. Or you can head straight over to my website, and I'll show you that right now. So on my website, if you just go there and hit this EV webinar sign up button, you'll see a big screen like this, and you can just put your name on the list, and I'll send you a list of the car companies that I'm going to work on through the video next week, and also a whole insight about the broader array of that sector of the market. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken all of the banks. Maybe I should just show you this first of all. Let's go to View All, and we'll just put them in summary mode. And what I've done is I've ranked them by scooter ranking. And the first thing to notice is that the best bank out of all of them only has a scooter ranking of 70, so we have nothing in the top of the market, which is a real concern. One of the difficulties with that is if everything's underperforming, then most people aren't moving money into the sector, so that's one thing. This is just intraday today, and it's pretty red paint, but on Tuesday. And then I think more importantly, if we just look at what happened over 1 week, and look at the change component here, what we see was there hasn't been a lot of positive stuff since the Fed came out. And looking back, these banks have basically started to plunge, I think it would be fair to say. So one of the things we're worried about as we go forward is, can the banks start to recover and improve? So we're going to look at them in the order of the scooter ranking, and it's just to try and find the best first and see what's going on there and see if there's any hope. So One thing here, we're sitting at an $85 resistance level, and this stock's basically got some declining tops on it, but it hasn't been able to break out yet. And I think that's a pretty important component, but at least it's above its 10-week moving average. And I'm just going to switch this to view all so we can scroll a little quicker. For Ameriprise Financial, you can see we've had this resistance going back 3 years and haven't been able to break through. And we've really started to roll over here under the 10-week moving average. We're getting a sell signal on the PPO. While the bank has performed in line with the S&P for periods of time, that would be right around the 50 level. It does go through periods of outperformance, and that was a relatively nice uptrend. But you can see that since COVID, nothing really going on. And again, this is one of the better banks, or better financial institutions, I should say. Here's E-Trade Financial, and you can see the big gap lower this week, really breaking down below the 10-week and starting to drop away. Scooter ranking is falling to its lowest level in 3 or 4 months. So this is starting to look like a breakdown mode to me on this particular company. BlackRock, they broke through the 10-week 4 weeks ago, and they're holding down in there. They traded sideways even through Monday's pain. Didn't really break outside the pattern so far yet, but they have rolled over in momentum here, and you can see that they were trying to be one of the top performing companies here, but over the last 2 months, the Scooter ranking shows them starting to decline relative to the large cap peers, so that's not a great message on the stock. If we extend this line over, it was at 550. We're at 550, so let's just call it it's trying to hold support, and we'll see how well it is able to do that. The MSCI specialty finance, you just see a big 5-year uptrend. It's still a pretty good looking chart, nothing wrong with that. It seems to get supported pretty close to the 40-week moving average, so we'll be watching that. It's been trading 4 weeks tight here. I don't like the fact that the long 2-year uptrend in momentum is starting to break. That's usually a caution sign for me. Looking at SVB Financial, this one got to $300 or $275 and basically stalled again. It's been stalled at that level for 1.5 years, so there's nothing really good happening here. Probably want to wait for it to at least make a higher high on a weekly chart. Moody's. This one is Moody. It's had some huge downswings in momentum. And we've been on a sell signal since middle of August, so going on 5 or 6 weeks already. It did push through to a new high, I'll say 4 weeks ago, but it was very brief. And so we've been working on the July 1st or around July 1st high and pulling back. We're still in a sideways range for most, let's call it 2 or 3 months now, but haven't really been able to make any headway. The NASDAQ, the actual company that owns the stock market, is rolling over here, and what we see 2 weeks below the 10-week moving average. That's not horrific. The one thing that we see is that it's relatively stable compared to its peers. It doesn't jag back and forth, and I can show you some other stocks that literally are out of favor, in favor, out of favor, in favor. This one has stayed above 50 for most of the chart life here, 5 years. And so one of the things we like is this bottom left to top right behavior. Obviously, this big stab in the dark here wasn't very good. We do see the uptrend rolling over again here, and hopefully we can find support around 110. That would be a hope. Equifax, this one's breaking down hard. Again, we're looking at the best first here, and these are already starting to look pretty, I'll call it precarious. This one is starting to head down meaningfully. Well, it did make a high in mid-July. I'd call it the June 1st top or June 8th top in there. And we're down at the 40-week moving average or 200-day already. So we would expect it to try and bounce here, and if it doesn't bounce here, I think that's a real light bulb for us. That's Equifax. Citizens Financial Group, this one hasn't really had a rally, basically chopped along here for a while. And we're still stuck below the 40-week moving average, so that's pretty rough on that particular chart. Looking at Jefferies, again, nowhere near the February highs. This thing's rolling over and struggling to stay above the 10-week and the 40-week. They were trying to cross. I don't like the PPO rolling over right near zero. That's a pretty big warning for me. Intercontinental Exchange Group, again, another trading platform. And we're seeing they've been hovering around the 10-week for 4 weeks now. So they had a nice sudden surge with all the rest of the tech names up to the top. And then have started to pull back. And trying to hold in here, I think, is a pretty important level. We'd like to see the full stochastic bounce at 50. That's kind of a bull market behavior thing. And this is bottom left to top right, so it's a pretty nice chart if you can try and pick it up near some lows. Fifth and Third Bank Corp. This chart just chopping sideways. I don't think there's any real momentum there. PPO rolling over right at zero. We have worse. We have this big downtrend in momentum that goes back for years, and each push higher has had less momentum. So rolling over right below zero here would be quite a worrisome feat for us. Morgan Stanley trying to break through that $54, $55 level. It was a double off the lows, but it bounced back up and still hasn't been able to get going. So I'm actually surprised the scooter ranking has weakened so quickly. And we can see this horizontal, I called it a support and resistance line. So I could have just put it up here at 55 and that would have been a resistance line. I put it where it was support for these months in here, and then resistance on these rallies, support, and now it tried to get back above it, and it's starting to fall below here. So let's call that a $48 level. It's struggling to hold there. It's down into 47. So don't want to see it lose that support level again. Perhaps all of a sudden it starts to roll over. We are on a sell signal there. So Bank of Montreal, this one, Canadian Bank BMO. You've probably heard them in the financial news quite a bit. They're looking like they're trying to roll over right at zero here. They had a big spurt 4 or 5 weeks ago and have started to pull back again. Nowhere near prior highs, so that's a bit of a problem. Again, I could have placed the line at $65, and that would have been more like a support and resistance line, so it's right at that level. T. Rowe Price, trying to hold this 120. We'll see if it can. It's already on a sell signal. Full stochastic moving below 50, so that's not really a positive. HDFC Bank. This one, we've got the 10-week and the 40-week trying to cross here. But we're rolling over right at zero. And you'll hear me say this over and over, rolling over at zero. What that means is momentum went low, bounced back up, and really hasn't gotten into a positive momentum and starts to fail again. That's a very cautionary place on the chart. And again, if we look across here at $50, this stock's been stuck in that range for a lot of the time over the last 3 years. Russian banks, this one made its high back in 2018, early 2020, and now stuck under its 40-week moving average. So nothing really good there, again, rolling over. RBC, which is probably how you know the bank, Royal Bank of Canada, ticker symbol RY. This one's rolling over, trying to hold the 40-week moving average, and we can see the PPO rolling over kind of similarly. Hasn't had a lot of momentum in the last few years. So a good rally off the lows, but looks like it's stalling here. And again, you'll see a lot of these banks put in their highs 3 or 4 weeks ago. UBS starting to break down again, hitting this resistance level. This is the Swiss bank, and what we see here is, it's been stuck at very low highs compared to the 2018 top, and really hasn't had any momentum and is rolling over. Gets down to 11. You really want it to hold this 40-week moving average. To me, a failure up here is a pretty big deal technically, and we don't want to see this go back down and start testing 9 and 8 again. Okay, next we have Regions Financial Corp. And for Regions, it had been shaping up very nicely. It had been rising for the last 10 weeks, but pulled down this week, just back below the 10-week moving average, and once again starting to fade away here on momentum. Bank of China, just this one's in the pennies, so we'll just leave it alone. National Australia Bank, this one broke down hard, making new 3-month lows, it looks like this week, maybe 4-month lows. And rolling over below zero, so that's quite a concern. And we can see the full stochastic is well below zero, and that's just typically bearish when they can't be in the top half of the range, so above 50. HSBC Holdings, this one had been sloping up nicely, pulled down below the 10-week this week. Not great, but at least it's still sloping up. But again, it made its highs 4 or 5 weeks ago. Mizuho Financial, this one, it's been at a downtrend for years, but rolling over, and this is interesting timing on the back because we've got a new Prime Minister for Japan this week. So we'll see what happens, see if that shakes anything up over there. Anyway, PPO trying to roll over here, 4th week of declining histogram, trying to roll over right around zero. Goldman Sachs, down hard actually. We're on its, I'll call it 3-month lows, very close to 4-month lows. It had peaked up around 215 and is now sitting around 190, so a $25 pullback in a couple of weeks. That's quite quick, and we don't want to see this roll over at zero. It's definitely doing that. ICICI Bank, again, all of these banks breaking below their 10-week moving average. TD Bank, big upslope going on here. It doesn't look too weak, but it was $51. It's now $45, so that's a significant haircut, down 10% in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and just fading out here. Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group, this one is still holding in the range. It's sideways for the last 3 or 4 months, but again, breaking down below the 10-week once again. KeyCorp really breaking down hard, so that's not a very good look. When we go into TD Ameritrade here, this one's been waffling sideways for 10 weeks now. Nothing really to talk about for direction. Huntington Bank shares, these broke down hard, new 2-month lows. Again, not great. Credit Suisse Group, this one broke down very hard here, down to new 3-month lows. And again, rolling over right at zero. Momentum, or the PPO indicator down here rolling over at zero. The full stochastic falling below 50%. And again, you can see that the scooter ranking never gets up into the top half here, so that's very uncomfortable that it can't get more momentum. Mitsubishi Financial, all of these Japanese banks have been declining for years and just trying to hold on. I mean, it spiked to a low of 332 and it's barely sitting at $4. So can't really call that much of a recovery off the COVID lows. PNC Financial, breaking down a little bit here, but back below the 10-week, and again, a weak PPO down deep. CBOE, this one's been working its way lower, not very good actually. This chart made its highs back in June 8th and has been working down since then. Westpac Banking, this one's also rolling over. It's an Australian bank pulling down hard. Affiliate Managers Group, this thing's just got a slope out of town. And then Bank of America Corp, this one's breaking its uptrend. That's pretty uncomfortable. And the full stochastic falling back below 50 again. PPO looks like it wants to roll over below zero. So none of these are looking great. DBS Group, and again, we're getting into the weaker part of the charts now. Franklin Resources, this one had a spurious rise into the early part of June and then done nothing since and is now back below all the moving averages, trying to hold $20. Bank of Nova Scotia, or BNS, is the ticker symbol, or Scotiabank you might have heard of. They're big in Latin America. This one's pulling down here from 44 to 40, back below both moving averages, again rolling over below zero. Australia and New Zealand Banking Group, this one gapping down to new 2-month lows. Raymond James Financial, this one's also breaking the big uptrend here. Still looks okay. It's only at 1-month lows or whatever, but I think the big thing again is the momentum on all of these starting to fail under the zero level. Invesco, this has been a weak chart for a while, but it hasn't done anything since June, so pretty much breaking down. U.S. Bank Corp made its highs in June, really going sideways for the last 10 weeks. Let's just call it that. Comerica had been tilted up last 6 weeks sideways and now starting to break down below the moving average. Intesa Sanpaolo, this one breaking down hard, gapping to new 3-month lows. And I think the bigger deal here is just, the chart's been a series of lower lows and lower highs. So this isn't a very good look and we don't want to see the momentum fade there. CME group, this one's been going sideways, straight sideways here. I would suggest if that doesn't get some momentum, it might make another leg down. I typically like it. See how this declining momentum, actually, let's just draw that in. This declining momentum on this chart, when that starts to break, sometimes that's a great clue. That's one of the clues I like to use to start thinking about getting long here. So I want to see this break this downward momentum trend. And you can see that, that's not a bad place to get on board when that sort of thing happens. I'd like to see the big downtrend break, and so far we haven't seen that yet. And it's been drifting quite a bit lower here, so it starts uncomfortably weak. And then let's just go back to our full mode here. And then Charles Schwab Group, hasn't really done anything. It'd be interesting to go back and mark on this chart when they started to offer the free trades, because the chart hasn't done much. I think it was back in here. Anyway, $35 just sitting sideways. And you can see the PPO has been below zero for almost 2 years. Hard to really get involved in that sort of name. Northern Trust Group, I think the big thing here, again, rolling over just below zero. That's sorry, not below zero, rolling over below $80. But again, once stuck under these moving averages and everything continues to have this ceiling on it, 1 week isn't too bad, but look at the momentum indicator here. The PPO has barely been positive, hasn't really been able to get any sort of upside spark, and I think that's a big problem for these names. BNP Paribas, big French bank, this one's dropping hard from 22 to 18 in a couple of days, or a couple of weeks, so that's pretty weak. And then State Street Corp breaking down really hard here from 72 to 58 in a couple of weeks. Credit Agricole, another French bank, breaking down to new 2-month lows, so nothing really comfortable. JP Morgan breaking that uptrend from the March lows. Again, that for a bank as well known as JP Morgan, that's a bit of a surprise to start see it really having no momentum here in the last 2 to 3 months and starting to break down. So nothing the Fed said looks like it's helping any of these banks. There's no real positive trends here on any of these. Zions Bank Corp continuing to break lower. Bank of New York Mellon Corp, that's really breaking down hard. That's got a bit of a waterfall starting on that one. Citigroup fell hard last week, and this week gapped lower. We've got a PPO cross below zero here. That's a very weak showing. And look at this volume bar at 250 million last week. Pretty scary, actually. And People's Bank, this one breaking lower. Banco Santander Brazil, really wandering sideways for the last 2 or 3 months between $5 and $6. And just a couple more names to go through here. Unibanco out of, I think that one's Italy again. Not sure. Unibanco was $5.86, now tracking around $4 here. So losing about 30% of its value. So that's not a good look. Barclays, big one out of England, and breaking down into the $4 range. Now it was $6.81 at the beginning of June there on June the 8th. So 3 months drop here. This one's almost fallen 50%. I guess 50% would be 350. So it's not quite that bad, maybe 30%. And Wells Fargo, by far the weakest big U.S. bank, trying to hold on to the lows in here in around 2250. So we'll keep watching that one. M&T Bank gapping really hard down from 106 just a couple of weeks ago, 112, and then 128 on June the 8th, and now it's down here at $92. So that one giving up quite a bit. Looking at Royal Bank of Scotland, rolling over while we're getting down to a level where we're testing those March lows. That's pretty scary. This one was 367. It's now tracking around 250, so quite low. And momentum indicator rolling over. What we'd look for now is if this starts to roll over and turn back up, that would be a very positive expression and something we'd like to see. Banco Bilbao out of Argentina. Again, another one testing the March lows here. So not a good look on that chart. Very, very weak. and Societe Generale out of France. This one is definitely back to the March lows. March lows were 274. We're trading at 274 now. There was a brief dip in May to an even lower level, but this chart clearly looks broken. So very concerning from that perspective. And here's Lloyd's Bank. This one's breaking down very, very hard. Was $1.25 and really falling to new lows now. So has taken out the lows from the COVID low. Banco Santander breaking down again here. This one was $1.90 back in May, and this week is $1.86. So really a difficult look on the chart. HSBC holdings were breaking down straight into the bottom right hand corner. So I think the main point I want to share with you is none of these banks look good, but some of these, especially these European banks that we just started to cover off, are looking very, very weak, and I think that's a big concern. So again, just to wrap up, if you're interested in the electric car or the discussion about the move to electric, feel free to go to this page and just sign up, and I'll keep you updated as to the time of the event and everything, and we look forward to catching you over on that side. While you're on the website, feel free to look around. There's a few things going on here. There's some educational articles, stock of the week, that you can check out. My Market Buzz videos, there's a link to all of those in there. And when I have specific articles that I don't put on StockCharts or whatever, I put them in here. So feel free to go take a look. Lots going on there. Anyway, hopefully there's some helpful ideas for you. I think you might find under the education some of these 1-minute videos are quite interesting, just for things you might not use. So anyway, that's a good place to look. Okay, and lastly, I think the bigger thing that we need to focus on here as we go into the fall, we've still got about a month, 6 weeks to go to the election. So that's going to be a very difficult period. I think there seems to be quite a bit of digestion. We still have the issues over in China where South China Sea is getting more active. China told its military to start preparing for war. There's some heat in the Taiwan Strait. India's got some warships going up that South China Sea. America's got some aircraft carriers in there. So they're a little bit more pressure than has been shared publicly in the news. So I think that would be something to also watch here as we go forward. It's not just all about the U.S. market. I think there's some real undertones over there that are starting to add some pressure. From a world perspective, I think those are big issues. And then the other big one is the Brexit thing. Seems to be breaking down, and so we'll have to watch that more closely. Thanks for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. You can also see the recording on StockCharts TV YouTube page. And don't forget to check out my Market Buzz when you get a chance. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.